Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Vicki-Lynne. If you're new here, welcome. I follow a plant-based diet. I'm on a personal journey to get healthy, lose some weight, lower my cholesterol, and get my body moving every day. And if you're on your own journey, leave me a comment down below. I would love to know what you're trying to do, whether it's eat more vegetables, move your body every day, any of those things. I would love to know what you're trying to do, so maybe we can work together to encourage each other, because we all need a little backup once in a while. Anyway, again, welcome back to my channel. And if you're new here, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so that you're notified every time a video goes up. Today I have a great meal prep for you. And oh, by the way, I am following the Starch Solution. That's how I've been doing everything. I've lost a little bit of weight doing it. And all my recipes are oil-free. I have a huge playlist down below. I have some great meal preps. So let's get in the kitchen. The first thing we're going to make is our muesli. Now muesli you can have cooked or not cooked. I like to toast my oats and my nuts. So we're going to toast it. We're going to start with our oats on a sheet pan, super simple. And then we're just going to be adding, I just like to spread it out nice and even. And then we're going to add in our nuts. So I'm using some sliced almonds. And then again, it's all a preference. I'm going to use some chopped pecans or pecans, depending on where you're from. I'm using some sunflower seeds and some sliced almonds. And again, you mix it up, make it the way you like it. This is also served, again, raw, but I do like it toasted. So we're going to toast it at 350. Just for about 10 to 15 minutes, just until your nuts and the oats are just slightly toasted, and you'll have a nice little smell. And I'm also putting in my spices on this, and we're using a little bit of cinnamon and a little bit of cardamom. So we're just going to toast this in the oven, and then when it comes out, it's slightly toasted. You're just going to give it a little bit of a stir. And to this, I'm going to add on top of this a little bit of coconut and put that back in the oven. Just spread it generously, and then we're going to toast it again for about another 3 to 5 minutes, just till the coconut is lightly toasted, and then we're going to let this cool. Now while our muesli is cooling, I'll tell you how we can use it. We can use it as a cereal and just put milk on it. We can use it as overnight oats, and we can use it in parfaits. Or you can cook it up hot like regular oatmeal. So what I'm adding to it is I'm adding hemp hearts and some goji berries and then some dry berries. So now we're going to move on to our lentil loaf, which is super simple. It's plant-based and delicious. The first thing we're going to need is we're going to chop up our vegetables, because we want to pack this full of nutrients, which it already is. And so we're going to chop up some celery. We're going to chop up our carrot. And so now with our carrot, if you've been around here, I'm going to take my bottoms of my carrots and I'm going to peel my carrots. I'm going to take my carrot peels. I'm going to put that aside, and that's going to go in the freezer. And then that's how I make my vegetable stocks on a regular basis, so I don't have to pay for it. And nothing goes to waste, or I try not to have anything go to waste in my kitchen. I try to save everything. There you go. Any of your onion skins, potato skins, things like that, all that can be used as in a stock. And when my bag gets full, I throw everything into my Instant Pot or into just a regular pot on the stove. Add some water, some bay leaves, some seasoning, and cook that. Strain it, and you have a wonderful soup stock. We're just going to do our onion now. And again, we're just dicing this nice and fine. We're going to end up cooking this all down. If you don't like the smell of onion or garlic on your hands after you've been chopping, 1, you can use your food processor. 2, all you need to do is find something that's stainless steel and run your hands under cold water with it, and that'll get rid of the smell. Now we're just going to chop up our mushrooms, and we're going to use about 8 ounces of mushrooms. Now in your food processor, you're going to take your walnuts and you're going to pulse them until they're a fine meal. but you don't want them like a powder or flour. And then we're going to add in our cooked lentils. And we're going to pulse those. So give those a pulse. Make sure you get them all in. And now you can use either cooked green or brown lentils, whatever you want. I always cook my lentils in a big batch and freeze them flat in reusable Ziploc containers or Ziploc bags. That way they're always ready to go anytime I want to cook them. And so these ones I had just taken out of the freezer, defrosted them, and they were ready to go. You're going to have to pulse them a few times to kind of blend this all together, as you see here. And now we're going to start cooking those vegetables that we chopped up. So you're going to put some water in a frying pan, because I don't use oil. If you use oil, that's fine. We're going to start sauteing our onions, carrots, and celery. And we're going to add our mushrooms. And we want to saute these until they are softened. And we want the mushrooms to release their juices. This is going to take between 5 and 10 minutes depending. We also want our carrots to be cooked but still firm. And this is a preference, totally up to you. So just keep cooking until they are nice and tender. Now we're going to get everything together for our lentil loaf. So the first thing we're going to do is, in a large bowl, we're going to put in the walnut and lentil mixture. We're just going to get that all in there, and you'll see it's nice and thick, and it'll hold everything together. You're also going to want at this point to be preheating your oven to 350 degrees, and you want to have a loaf pan prepared. And I do like to cover mine with parchment paper, at least along the sides. I don't like to spray mine. It is a non-stick pan, but I do like to have a parchment paper in there. It just makes it easier to get the loaf out. We're now going to add in our cooked vegetables that we had water sauteed on the stove. I've let them cool for a few minutes just to make sure that they're easier to handle. And then we're going to add in the rest of our ingredients. There's going to be some ground flaxseed to help bind, some ketchup, some vegan Worcestershire sauce, salt and pepper, some dried thyme. And then we are going to use some breadcrumbs to bind this. Now start with, the recipe will be down below, guys. Start with the least amount and just go from there. It'll depend on how moist your lentils are, how moist your mushrooms and your vegetables were, and so you're going to need to play with that. So I've given you a range between about a half a cup to 3/4 of a cup, but you don't want your mixture to be dry. If it is, just add some broth or some water, because you do want this to be moist. Again, so we're just going to mix this all together. Then after you finish mixing it, you always want to check your seasoning, see if it needs any more salt or pepper or extra seasoning. I was using fresh thyme here, so I did add some extra dry thyme. I was lucky enough, one of our friends had some fresh thyme in their garden, so I did add some extra dry thyme. And again, adjust your seasoning to your preference. Don't like thyme, use sage. That would be awesome in this, or even poultry seasoning. Just an FYI, poultry seasoning doesn't have any poultry in it. It's just a seasoning that you use for stuffing and other cooking, but it is vegan, and that would be a great spice for this recipe. That would be another thing that to use in this one. So you can we're just going to put our mixture into our pan. Super simple. Just make sure your parchment paper stays in place. And the other thing I sometimes do with my parchment paper is I actually use just clothespins just to hold it in place, especially when I'm cooking alone or if I don't have anybody to hold it for me. That's another little trick. And then you're just going to want to press this down. Once your lentil loaf is baking in the oven, you can make the topping for it, which is super simple. We're just going to use a half a cup of ketchup. And we're going to just throw that in a measuring cup, and 2 tablespoons of brown sugar and a teaspoon of vegan Worcestershire sauce. And you're just going to mix that up and set that aside. Now, once your lentil loaf has been baking for about 30 minutes with the tin foil on, you're going to take the tin foil off, and you're going to spread your topping on that we made earlier and set aside. This is going to give it a beautiful glossy look. It's going to add extra flavor to it. The topping makes everything. Now, if you don't want to use this, if you're watching some of your sugar content, you can just have ketchup on it. You can make a gravy for it. You can do whatever you want with your lentil loaf. It just adds a little bit extra to it. And it does come out spectacular, by the way. And you're just going to put this back in the oven for about another 10 or 15 minutes just to kind of brown it and let it set in. Doesn't that look gorgeous? And for our last recipe in our meal prep this week is a simple, I'd like just to call it like an Asian soup. And it's super easy. I've made some homemade vegetable broth in my Instant Pot using my scraps. And now I'm just chopping up an onion. And again, this is going to be super simple, comes together very quickly. And this you can make on a weeknight. Doesn't need to even be a meal prep. So I'm just chopping up an onion. And to that, we're going to use some garlic. And again, you can use garlic powder, fresh garlic, whatever you want. We're going to throw everything into this pot. We're just going to water saute the onion. And I'm actually just using some stir-fried vegetables. So I'm using a little bit of the broth to saute the onions. And I'm actually just using a bag of stir-fried vegetables to make this simple. I just threw it all into the pot with the homemade veggie stock, and I'm adding some leftover lentils that I had from the lentil loaf to bump up the protein in this soup. Makes it super simple. And what I did to have this during the week is I just took some very, very thin, like almost vermicelli kind of rice noodles and put them in the bottom of the bowl and threw the soup on top and just warmed it in the microwave, and it cooked the noodles all at the same time.